We're
live. Aloha. I'm Heidi Love, and I'm actually sitting on the big island of Hawaii outside, so you guys can hear the birds and see the trees behind me in the jungle. I thought that would be a nice place for me to sit for our last episode of Real Life Talk. As we mentioned last week, if you didn't hear before, we are taking a pause, and we don't know if that's a short pause or an indefinite pause. So you have to stay tuned on our personal Facebook pages to find out. But we have had so much fun being with you guys. And today, the topic on Real Life Talk is letting go. And I think letting go is such an important topic, and we thought it pertinent since we're letting go of this time. And we're going to talk about celebrations and completions. We're going to talk about the root chakra. We're going to talk about the importance of letting go and how that opens up energy for new beginnings and all kinds of good things like that. So stay on with us. You want to say hi, Timothy?
Hello, I'm on the island right. I'm excited to be here. Completion, ending, letting go brings room for new beginnings, new things. And it's not always easy to discern when it's time to let something go, especially when we are getting some pleasure out of it. There's some value. So I'm excited to talk about how do we know when it's time to let something go, and how do we do that well? Because Heidi and I could have easily just said nothing, had no last program, and that wouldn't have been completing something well. That would be just dropping something, right? And so I've dropped a lot of relationships in my life. I've quit work. I've done all kinds of things pretty abruptly. I'm a pretty spontaneous, oh, this is done, I'm out of here, as opposed to, wait, let me take a couple of weeks or some time and close things down nicely. So I think Heidi and I will reveal our process around how we decided to let go of Real Life Talk for now, or maybe permanently. And I believe that's a value process to go through in one's life with lots of things.
Yeah, I think it's so important. And I'm glad that you shared that, Timothy, because I was thinking whenever we have a topic, I kind of ponder what is up for me around that, or what have I experienced in my life around that. And I have also been a person that can abruptly let go or not let go. So I've either been I love my one-liners. So let go or get dragged. I've been the person behind the truck hanging on.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the idea that resentment, the hot stone, and the only person it's burning is the one holding it. That's usually you.
Yeah.
Other person's not, maybe they're angry at you still. That's their stone to let go of. Sometimes we're the only one hurting. When you were doing the analogy of dragging behind the truck, yeah, for me, it's walking around with a boiling hot stone in my hand.
So I'm going to type in resentments. Let's just make a little list here of things that we hang on to that actually hurt us when we don't let go. So resentments are a huge one. Relationships is a broader topic, right? I've had a hard time knowing when to let go of relationships, and probably been somebody that stayed in relationships too long to the detriment of myself and others.
Because our self-worth is so involved, right? Resentment's kind of easier to go, oh, that happened. I'm still living in the shame or the anger or the grief of it. I'm bargaining. And that can kind of, when a relationship ends, sometimes we get stuck in these things. But I agree, when we're in a relationship, like a relationship with Real Life Talk and the people who watch and share our program, there's a lot involved. Right. And there's my self-worth, there's the work that we do in the world, there's the teaching, there's value for each of us and value for the people who listen. There's the time commitment. There's so many factors. And I think a relationship is more like that. It has so many different aspects. It can be more difficult. It's not all bad or all good usually. If it's all bad, it's pretty easy to let go of.
Yeah.
Unless you're caught up in trauma and the being traumatized keeps you in it.
So I was thinking of more things that are kind of more black and white that are, harmful to us if we don't let them go. Bad habits. I mean, once we've identified it's a bad habit, we need to let it go. And if we hang on to
Cigarette,
it too long, it's
yeah,
painful, right?
cigarette.
Bad habits, addictions. Can you guys think of any others? Whoever's listening in with us today, you can type in the comment box on Facebook, and I'm reading those, and Timothy can read those too. And we love to chat with you that way. So if you want to type in there anything that you think, if you don't let go of it, it can be harmful. And so we said resentments, addictions, bad habits, anything you can think of that we haven't listed. I think I love your analogy of the hot stone and hanging on to it, and it only burns you. And I remember I was at this class and it was on forgiveness, and a man was talking about really forgiving everyone. And of course there was several people in the class that have had heinous acts done to them, myself included. I had been raped. Another girl had shared just something really traumatizing that in my opinion was worse than what I had been through. And she's like, how can I forgive this person? I'm truly a victim of this person, and he had such an interesting take on it. And it was like that. It was like, you're doing it for you because it hurts you forever. And by setting them free, it sets you free. And not to, there's a great saying that my partner says, maybe he'll tell me about forgiving someone, but not allowing the behavior to continue. That I think is important. So forgiveness doesn't mean that it's okay. It doesn't mean acceptance of the action, but it means however you've reconciled it in yourself. And the way this man described it was he described it as if those people were so sick, you knew that you didn't need to take it personally. Like it had nothing to do with you, and that enabled forgiveness. And he explained it much better than I am right now. But I thought it was a really interesting thing and an important thing.
Yeah, I like to think of it as even if I can't absolutely forgive someone because of the thing they did, I can't forgive the act. I can at least let go of my resentment towards them because that's actually only hurting me. And then after that, we can work on forgiveness. But first step is letting go of the resentment, which in a way is like, I think a trauma response, right? Somebody hits me and I'm like, they're going to get defensive. I'm holding on to it. And if I'm holding on to that years later, again, that person's not really thinking about it. Or if they do, they're thinking about it from a different perspective. So letting go of the resentment and then ideally getting to the place where I can forgive them, like forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, right? Like this person had pain, suffered, and is inflicting their pain, they're hurting, they're inflicting it on me, but it's not about me. So I forgive them, I release them, I let it go. I do not accept that type of behavior in my life or in the world. Or
The saying I was trying to think of is, just because you forgive someone doesn't mean you have to condone, accept, or exonerate their behavior. And I'm glad with what you just said, Timothy. It reminded me of what the man was teaching. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. And that was kind of the debate we were having in that group, was when we think they did it to us, like they knew what they were doing and they purposely did it to us, the scarring and the damage and the hurt is much more than if we truly understand that they just did it. It had nothing to do with us. It was their behavior, their sickness, their history, their everything. And we happen to be, in the way of that happening. And we don't have to condone, accept, or exonerate the behavior. And we don't have to forgive the behavior. But if we don't forgive, it's one of the things, if we don't let go, will harm us forever.
I'm going to come at it from the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Perpetrators rarely get a chance to speak. And when they do, they're often shunned or condemned, ostracized, kicked out, and in many ways, rightly so. But having been someone who has hurt other people, mostly through a desire to be close, to be loved, to be accepted, to be everything for that person, but in that process, abandoning myself, hurting myself, and thus eventually hurting them, and thinking I'm being honest, thinking I'm trying to get my needs met, everything else, but really being out of integrity with myself and with the other. And then the perception on the other side is you victimized me, you lied to me, you coerced me, you did all these things. And for the longest time, I couldn't even see it. I couldn't see what they were talking about because I wasn't aware of the pain inside of me that was causing me to move and do the things that I was or wanting to heal something within myself. So a lot of us are acting out of blindness. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. We're acting out of blindness and doesn't justify my behavior, doesn't make it okay. But for someone to hold on to the resentment and not forgive me, or for me to feel shame at a level where I don't move, then I'm actually continuing to hurt myself and they're continuing to hold on to the pain that they received from me. So forgiveness is that thing that really sets us free, letting go. Um, again, it's kind of like that hot stone. We're grabbing it and we're in a fear response or a fright response, a defensive response, and we can't release the hand. We can't open it and it continues to burn.
I think Timothy and I did a talk on the life cycle phases, and the final and fifth phase of the life cycle is completion. And this is represented by our root chakra and the frequency of earth. And so completion always prepares the way for new beginnings. It requires that we let go of what we no longer need. And without letting go, we don't have room for a new beginning. So even if it's a relationship, an experience, a project we've been working on, by integrating what is positive and learning by our regrets, we can recycle into the new beginning with vitality in presence and presence. I think that I've been a person that skips this for a couple reasons. So if you have a hard time letting go, or if you just abruptly, like Timothy talked about, I like to have an abrupt ending. I hate saying goodbye. I'll often leave a party without saying goodbye to anybody. So I don't like that feeling. So there's a couple things for me personally, and I'm asking you to inquire right now, and you too, Timothy, and maybe you can share about that. But inquire, if you do that, why do you do that? And some of my whys are, I'm very uncomfortable in the painful feelings of saying goodbye. So I don't like to say goodbye to relationships. I don't like to hurt people. I don't like to even say goodbye. I just left my very good friend in the Bay Area, and it's always hard leaving her because she has a really hard time with me leaving. And we both love to just unplug. She went to Seattle. I got on the plane and we were only texting, and we just heard each other's voices today because we both don't want to say goodbye and the feelings that come up around that. So I like to avoid those negative feelings. And then another reason is I feel very uncomfortable celebrating, and that's still work that I'm doing on myself. I don't know exactly what that's about. I think it's a little survivor's guilt, and to really celebrate a job well done, or celebrate a bunch of neat things that came out of a relationship, or celebrate this real life talk and end it at the same time. I don't know how to do that yet. And so I think that's an interesting thing. So I wonder what comes up for you around that stuff, Timothy.
And I have trauma in my life from having to say goodbye to my dad or my mom, kid, from 9 years on, like back and Christmases, Thanksgiving, separate, lots of goodbyes at the airport. So yeah, I got really good at goodbyes, but I also don't. And I'm similar to you. If I leave a party I'd rather just sneak out the back door. And in my way, it's like I'm making it easier on everyone. You don't have to, oh,
Yeah.
goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. And I'll see you again. Even with
Yeah.
friends, I like to say, see you soon.
Yeah.
Even when if I don't know if I'm going to see them in a year. Um, and I would say similarly that linked to that is it's like avoid the lows and don't let yourself indulge in the highs. This kind of like desire to try to stay in the middle, which is wise. And wow, if I'm never celebrating my joy and really letting it out for fear that it's going to get rejected or it's going to set me up for failure or whatever. This idea that I've got something I'm really excited about, I'm not going to tell anybody because if I tell anybody, it'll ruin it or it won't happen. Or, I learned as a kid, like anything you tell people about gets talked about, gets made fun of, gets destroyed. Better to keep the things important to you close. But in reality, as an adult, now I want to share in my joy with people. I want to let it out. I want to, be with it. So I see a lot of similarities in this, probably different reasons for each of us. Mine more about abandonment, but for not wanting to say goodbye, not wanting to let go in a way. And when you look at relationship, if we move into that basket, for me, because my self-worth was on the line, many relationships I got into that I knew I shouldn't get into this relationship. This is not going to be good for me or them. But I felt I had this little boy in me that felt if I can be good enough and they love me and they accept me and I accept them, then we'll get there. All my worth will be validated. As opposed to no, 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 I'm the only one at my age that can love this little boy and reassure him and then be really authentic and true to myself and my partners, my relationships, so that I'm not causing harm.
Yeah.
And again, that attachment to self-worth and proving the self-worth through the relationship, a really tricky thing. It's hard to let go of. And it was a pattern I was in since I was a little kid.
I think another thing that comes up with relationships is if I let go of this, I've failed. So trying to make it work at the cost of knowing your own truth, at knowing there's deal breakers, at knowing you're not compatible. It's like we have this idea that if we get in a relationship, it should last forever or it should be, I don't know. We have a lot of beliefs. A lot of us have different beliefs, but I can really lean into that of feeling like if I let this go, I fail. Same thing with work. I feel it's coming up for me around this a little bit. Like, well, if this had done everything we set out for it to do and all that, then we might not be letting it go. And there's a lot of self-talk around letting go. I think if it's a project, if it's work, if it's a relationship where you had some vision for it, and if it didn't match that vision, somehow you failed. And so how do we celebrate and let go and know that it was just as beautiful as it was meant to be, or we expected it to be, but in a different way. And I think that's a hard thing to sometimes reconcile, is our expectations of what we wanted out of doing something or having something or being with someone.
Yeah, I hold an expectation that is really harmful to me, and that is for perfection.
Mm-hmm.
That real life talk needs to generate clients and work, and the fact that it's not hitting these certain bars that I would like it to hit means that I am a failure at marketing and that I'm a failure at systems, online systems, and I'm lazy and not putting in the work necessary to make it happen. And there may be some truth in those things, right? But the idea that there's something wrong with me is not true. And often I've stayed in situations much too long. I feel good about this one. I feel like Heidi and I have taken the time behind the scenes to talk about, hey, how's this going? And we've recalibrated multiple times. And it's still good. We really enjoy, we've never met in life. by the way. Um, but we really enjoy, I know I'm speaking, I really enjoy being with Heidi, and I enjoy our relationship with each other emotionally, and peer coaching. And that's important as a coach. Otherwise, you feel kind of isolated. You need someone to talk about your own life, but also your cases, things that are going on. And it feels less lonely. So it meets a lot of my needs, but I'm not hitting these kind of professional expectations. And then begins the self-deprecation or shame, which is really for me this idea that I need to be perfect. I need to be able to do everything. I need to have it all figured out. And sometimes it's better to just slow down and go, okay, let's take a break. Let's recalibrate. Let's put our energy where it's feeling alive
Mhm.
rather than where it's feeling kind of flat or stagnant before it turns into draining, before it gets to this place where I become resentful, not of Heidi, but like of real life talk. I'm not there yet. We're ending on a good note. And
Mhm.
that's kind of my goal is like when I let go of something, if I can let go of it and feel clear and feel free, I've let go of it at the right time. If I let go of it and someone's hurt or upset or I'm upset, I've gone too far. I've stayed in too long.
Yeah. So those are you brought up the question in the beginning of the call, how do we know when to let go? So I think that would be nice to talk about. And then I'm just saying this out loud because my brain can just kind of go from thing to thing and forget. But I also want to cover like how we decided to let go and the exercise of celebrations and regrets, because I think it's a wonderful thing for people to learn. But let's dive into the topic of, yeah, how do we know when to let go of a project, of work, of a dream, of a relationship? And when, we've talked about how it hurts us to stay too long, but how do we let go healthfully so that we can move into new beginnings? The one thing I want to mention, the analogy that comes up around that for me, and I do a lot of self-talk. That's one of my tools that I've used for depression, for anxiety, for addiction, um, is self-talk. And the one of the things that I brought up to myself in sometimes in thinking of letting go, there's fear involved, fear of failure, fear of losing that thing, fear of missing out, FOMO. And so I think about if you have choices of going to Mexico on a vacation or going to Europe on a vacation, they're both great, right? Like they're both great things. But if you don't let go of one, like say you only have these dates, there's a parameter of dates. You have this week and you can choose this or anywhere on the planet, really. But if you keep obsessing of, well, if I go there, I can't have this. And if I let that go, I won't have this. And you're just in the perpetual regretting of what you won't have if you don't do that, you don't get either. But if you really choose into one of them and embrace that decision and focus, there's a whole lot more energy loosened up and you can embrace it and focus. And I think that happens to me a lot when I'm letting go, that I vacillate of, well, what are the benefits of letting go and what am I going to miss if I don't keep doing it? And I can stay in that spiral of thinking, or which is necessary for a small period of time, but I can really stay in that.
I think that's called FOMO, right? Where,
Yeah.
oh God, if I go to this party but I don't go to that one, what's happening at that one? And then I go to this party and in the middle I'm like, I bet it's better over there. I'm having FOMO. And
Yeah.
sometimes making a decision and letting go and going with our decision, whether it's for the best or the worst, is a better way to go. Once somebody said to me once you make a plan, stick with the plan. However,
Yeah.
I like to practice what I call listening into my inner guidance. And so I'll give you an example. It's not mine, it's a client that I worked with. He had tickets bought for Mexico, kind of like Heidi's talking about. Going to Mexico. It was 2 weeks, planned it, everything, bought the tickets, spent $100 round trip ticket. I think he even had tickets for his partner. So it was like $1,200. And all of a sudden he gets this hit. I'm supposed to go to Maui. I want to go to Maui. right? An invitation to come to Maui. It just feels totally in alignment. It feels like that's what I want to do. But his mind goes, you already spent $1,200 on tickets to Mexico. You can't, you're going to lose that money. You can't do that. You got to go to Mexico. But again, he went with more his internal guidance and what was feeling alive. And he just let go of the tickets and bought new tickets to Maui and lost $1,200. For him, that was not an issue. And he didn't get reimbursed because somehow, however, he bought his tickets and everything else. I think he could use that airfare with it here, but it was a pain. And then he had to pay change fees and all of these things. So it became not about the money. It became about this is what I know is right for me. And I'm going to go with it, even though it doesn't make sense to the logical mind. And this is something I think is difficult when we're making decisions about letting go of something. The ego, the mind, with all of its training, it's public school or private school, its mother, its father, its church, its religion. There's all these ways you're supposed to do something, as opposed to what feels the most expansive and the most alive. We come, Heidi and I, we went through the celebrations, we went through kind of, the things that we wish were different. And mostly what helped me make the decision was I just feel lighter letting it go. And I know lighter is better for me. And if I stay in it, it's feeling heavy. I don't need to figure it out. I don't need to think about it. And now that I know where I want to go, how do I do that responsibly? Well, I have to talk with Heidi and let her know where I'm at and hear where she's at. Fortunately, we're on the same page. It was quite nice. I don't feel like Heidi or I felt rejected or surprised, or because we're in this constant communication around what we're doing together. And we both had an intuitive feeling of, oh yeah, this is better. And I'm speaking for myself, I do have the worthless part of me that goes, you failed. You're letting people down. What's Scott Katoma's going to think, and da, 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 da. And it's like, I know Scott. He's going to say, Timothy, take care of yourself. And yeah, I wish you guys would do the talk. I really think it's we're getting a lot out of it. He'd have his perspective, but I know ultimately he wants what he knows is best for me and best for Heidi. So as we move into how to let go, first thing I would say is listening to the body, listening to the energetics of the body. Where does a decision feel contracted? Where does it feel open? I would say move towards open and then use your mind to decide, am I making a mistake here or not? But don't go to your mind first. Your mind will, like I said, often trick you.
I think that part of letting go is difficult in our society because we do have so many choices. That's not the case all over the world. I had an experience at working in Mexico for 2 months with my daughter, and we were in a tiny town called Hulachuca. It was 500 people, very poor, very rural, a very wonderful experience. So wonderful. But I remember the serenity that I had and the peace that I had of not having choices. There was only so many choices of what we got to do during the day, the work that we had to do, the people we could talk to. There was no cell service, no Wi-Fi, no outside world. And having that limiting the amount of choices for some reason gave me this experience of peace that I've never had in life. And I think that along with the privilege that we have, along with the consciousness that we've developed in relationship, we have a lot of choices to make. And so I want to offer this tool of, again, how do we let go? How do we know when to let go? Of what Timothy and I have practiced with staying current with each other about real life talk. We have this relationship with the project, and are we staying current? And I think in our lives, are you staying current with your job, your dreams? Are you staying current with your loved ones and your partner? Meaning, are you checking in and seeing where it's going well? What's feeding the relationship? What's feeding the project? What's depleting it? Are you willing to let go of behaviors in the relationship that are depleting the relationship or depleting one of you as individuals? And I see this so much, especially with couples, that people don't do these check-ins and they get very empty and depleted before they realize this and start trying to check in and fill back up and fill up the tank. So I think doing, staying current, looking at what's supporting and what's hurting the goal, the project, the relationship, the whatever it is that you're um, having attention to or having a relationship with, what's supporting it, what's hurting it, what can you do to adjust it. And then as we went through this process, Timothy and I, with Real Life Talk, we decided that it was time to let it go. But we asked all those questions. What can we do to support it? What can we do? What are we doing that's hurting it? What are we willing to do to make it different? What are we not willing to do to make it different?
Yeah, we even came up with a plan. If we were to continue Real Life Talk, we would do these things to really give it another go. And that's when going that route allowed us both to go, actually, I don't have the energy for this right now.
No.
I've got energy for some other things I'm working on, and I want to put the energy there. So there's also that. There's really being aware of, so we've got staying attuned to your emotional or inner guidance. We've got checking in with yourself and with your people, your partners, your relationship, your business partner, whatever it is, your co-host, and staying close regularly, making that a regular practice, right? Not just taking it for granted. Oh, Heidi and I do this talk. We're just going to do it forever. No, how's it going? And we might check in. I think we've checked in like every 2 months easily on
at least
how it's going and what are we doing, what are our new topics. And then the third thing that I was just thinking of is, see, I should have just said it. Now it's escaping me. But we have the aliveness, we have the check-in. Oh, that by doing what Heidi was talking about, by looking at how can we make this work without committing to it, it often helps us realize I don't want to do that. So we're not creating a plan to keep real life talk going. Real life talk going. We're creating the plan to really explore what would that be like. And as we're doing it, both of us were feeling into the energy it would take. And so that brings me to, we only have so much time in the day.
Yeah.
How much time does Timothy spend on this thing, just pushing buttons? Way too much. Time that he could be spending on writing and other projects, working with clients and things. So that's for me to notice and to shift that energy. And at the same time, I can't have 100 intimate relationships going at the same time. I don't have enough time in the day for all of that. I know my mother and father would like me to call them more, and that's important to me. So noticing what are our resources, where are we getting our cup full, if you will? Where's our cup feeling depleted? And sometimes that's a good way to go, you know what? I need to let go of this cup and keep this one.
Yeah, I think that's an honest evaluation. So let's add that into the tools of when do we know when to let go? By doing an honest evaluation to what would it take to make the changes you would want. So even in relationship, this is really important. So you have this idea of your project, your job, our talk, the relationship, and you look at it and you're like, okay, we're not hitting that. We're not doing that. So what do we suppose it would take in order for us to live into that together, whether it's your work partner's partner, whatever. And then really honestly assessing, do we have the time, money, energy, resources? Do we have the yes to do those things? And that's what Timothy is explaining. As we explored that about this particular topic, we were both like, yeah, no, we don't want to do the things we think it would take to make it what we really wanted it to be. And we were honest about that. And then come the feelings, right? Are we bad because of that? Are we failing because of that? Are we being healthfully honest because of that? Which is what I believe to be true. So really looking at, are you willing to show up in a way that would create an effect that you want?
And the feeling part that Heidi's bringing up is it's the thing most of us miss when we think of letting go. We think letting go is just letting go. But that moment is actually feeling our feelings, noticing our thoughts. What's coming up as I let go of this? Oh, the crystal is going to break, or going to get damaged, or there's something wrong with me, or I'm afraid, or I'm scared. Often it's the what if mind starts to create scenarios. If Heidi and I don't do this talk, will she still be my friend? Will we still talk? Am I going to lose the relationship? So now there's things, ramifications that have nothing to do with the actual talk happening. And we even talked about that. We even both of us said, well, we really want to keep the relationship going. Let's talk occasionally and let's reach out to each other going. We may even do some work together. Who knows? Whether it's a workshop on the Big Island or on Maui and um, around relationship and energetics and all the things that we talk. So letting go, the hard part is being with what comes up as we think about, contemplate letting go. And when it comes to a relationship, one where we're having sex with each other, intimate with each other, and we've invested time and money, resources, and property, whatever, whoa, letting go becomes very complicated and brings up sometimes the worst in. And that's our opportunity to sit with our worst, own it, feel it, take responsibility for it, and let go of that or integrate that so that we don't act out in a way that's hurtful. Or, like I said earlier, Heidi and I just going out the back door. We don't say goodbye. We don't do a last show. We don't announce that we're going to do a last show and we just disappear. That's not really mature. That's not,
That's
that's coming
easy
out of,
though.
yeah, yeah. And it's coming out of wounding and it's coming out of lack of taking responsibility. And as I said earlier, I spent a lot of my life doing that, even justifying that behavior. I find when we let go of something and do it well, it really makes room and paves way for something new to enter into our life in a better way. When we just drop something and it shatters and we don't pick up the pieces and we walk away, well, there's broken glass all over the sidewalk. Someone's going to step in it. You know, it's having a karmic effect, if you will. If we really think about wanting to be good, do good, and I mean in a non-dual sense, um, okay, then what actions are required of us? And so letting go not only requires feeling our feelings, noticing our inadequacies, our thoughts, not letting that drive the decision, but it also requires responsibility. What do I need to do to complete this? And I don't, if someone's not going to let you leave the relationship, and the only way you can go is to get in your car and drive off after you've really tried to say goodbye,
Yeah.
well, you did your best. But if you just get in your car and drive off and that person comes home and all your stuff's gone and they don't know what happened, you're leaving broken glass all over.
Mhm. I want to talk about, and this ties into a million topics we've covered of codependency. It touches on the resentment that you mentioned earlier and letting go of relationships. That if you are really wanting something, whether it's your work or a certain kind of connection or certain kind of results in life, whatever it is, and you are frustrated that you're not getting it with the person, with the thing, with the activity, and you keep blaming what's outside yourself, you're not allowing yourself to let go to make space for what you really want. And this can get really painful. I mean, I actually went through this in my current relationship where I wanted so much certain kind of communication and connection and commitment, and we battled over that for some time of different things of what he wanted, what I wanted, and I had to essentially. So part of this is looking at what you're wanting and accepting that that's okay for you. Because it means a lot. If you're going to let go of something that you really want, you have to accept that that's okay for you and that maybe the situation, the job you're in, the relationship you're in, the place you're in doesn't fit that. And that's effing painful. I know that you know what I'm talking about. I mean, Timothy and everybody listening, I know that most of us have had that experience where we really wanted something and we didn't want to let go of what we had in order to make space for that. And what I have found every single time in my life, I didn't want to let go of alcohol. It created a lot of fun, a lot of intrigue, a lot of brain shut off, a lot of positive things. And the results that I got from letting go of that are 10,000 times what it ever gave me. And so I have found that in letting go, I have received much bigger gifts. And I don't know why, that I know that intellectually, and it's still really hard to let go. And I'll go back to the story about my relationship, that I actually got to a space where I wanted to set us both free from those expectations, from the desires, from the wishes of the ideal of the relationship, and say, I am okay with what I want. I'm also fine with what you want. And if it's not a match, we don't do it. And we let each other go to come back into that. And that can happen too. When you let go, you can come back together in a sweeter way without all this resistance. And it's really been a beautiful thing for me. I've also had it happen the other way, where I let it go and something much more suitable came because I gave space for that. If you're in a job that you hate and you hate it and you hate it and you hate it and you hate it and you don't let it go, there's not going to be room for something new.
I'm working with a man right now who, he came to me and he had a job he didn't like. And he wanted to let go of the job and find a new job. But as we actually worked on what it is he wants in a job, he realized he has what he wants. And that he was creating a story that his bosses and other people wouldn't appreciate what he had to offer and bring to it. So I came up with a plan. Well, why don't you go and float this idea with your bosses and see what happens? And be willing for them to have the knee-jerk reaction of, no, that's not who we are. We don't do it that way. And wait a little bit, see if they don't come back around. And sure enough, he's realized he's got the job he wants. And it was just him needing to let go of his expectations and this fantasy that he was projecting outwards to see, I actually have what I want. Now, I think he's closer to be able to change jobs because he's accepting where he's at. When we don't accept where we at, we don't really know what we have. We're not in appreciation. Our partner or our bosses or our kids, they feel it. They don't feel appreciated. They feel judged. They feel unwelcome. And so we're not really making a go of what we have. We're living in some future reality or some fantasy. Example, Timothy, 9 years old, his dad leaves. He's terrified. He can't express it. Doesn't believe he can cry, feel it, anything. He's just got to hold it all together. He doesn't know what's happening. He's 9, and he thinks, I did something wrong, and I need to be the strong man for my mother and my sister. And he starts cleaning his room and doing everything really right, being a good boy. Well, that child entered into every relationship afterwards looking for acceptance, looking for approval, looking for someone to basically say they would never leave. And then what did he also do? He tested everybody always, constantly, especially as they got close, to make sure that they wouldn't leave. Well, if I'm poking you in the eye with a pencil, at some point you've got to say enough and leave, right? And I was doing that emotionally and through boundary crossing and other things, absolutely unaware. And so here I am I'm holding on to a story that got developed when I was 9, and it's affecting my relationships till I'm 50 years old. And then finally, pain of it got so bad, I had to look inward and go, oh, I'm doing this. I'm not accepting of who I am, my own pain and my own terror and my own sadness. And I need to accept myself fully, all parts, in order to be able to enter into a relationship where I can stay true to myself and really accept who I'm with for who they are. And my current partner, Tomoko, every once in a while, I'll get into this place that Heidi's talking about where I'm like, she's not this, or she's not that, or I want this, or this, that. And what I'm looking at is flaws in my mind. I'm judging. And I'm not looking at all the great stuff. Well, who wants to be with someone that's only looking at, and it's not even true, they're only projecting inadequacy at them? Who wants to be with someone who's defining them as broken, bad, not good enough? I don't. I'd rather be with
None.
somebody who's like, hey, Timothy, you're great. Love you how you are. And if I may, I'd like to just point something out to you. Right.
Yeah.
But then they come back to focusing on my good traits. So with Tomoko and I, not only do we have check-ins every week, but we also have like about a 3-month process every 3 months where we come back to clearing the slate, like Heidi was talking about, recalibrating and recommitting to one another fully, or really getting honest about what's not working and maybe we get out, but not just looking at the faults, right? Not just looking at the job as I hate my job. They won't let me do this. They won't let me do that. When really it's all in your head, coming out of your own past story. You can hear it. I kind of keep harping on this idea of like subconscious behavior dictating our present reality, and then us, like Heidi said, being a victim and blaming everyone and everything for our reality when we're doing it to ourselves. Very different than hail falling from the sky and breaking our windshield.
Yeah.
I didn't create
I think something that is coming up as you're talking is places in our life that we need to let go of and forgive ourselves. Let go of our past wrongs to others. Let go of hating ourselves over things where we made mistakes. I know that that is also something, we talked about at the beginning of the call, things you hang on to that harm you. And if you're hanging on to being a horrible person because you've made mistakes in your life, welcome to the human race. Welcome to the human race. We have all a very long laundry list. I'm sure every human does. And I'm not in any way saying don't overlook it and no big deal. You can do whatever you want and forgive yourself. Not at all. But I know that some of us self-harm by beating ourselves up over mistakes we made when we did the best we could in the situation with the tools and resources we had. And many times we learn on hindsight, looking back and having new tools to look back with or support to look back with. And we see where we've harmed others and we've harmed ourselves. And there's a process of letting go of that and moving on. And how can it help ourselves and others in the future?
And again, we come to release shame requires facing our negative thinking, facing our emotions, really looking at where did this behavior begin. And if I look at my about a 10-year cycle in my life where I kept choosing the same, not the same person, but I kept choosing the same relationship, but a different person. And it was really because I was carrying shame from the last failure. And so subconsciously, I was trying to work it out with yet a new partner, but who really wasn't suited to be with me and I wasn't suited to be with them. So I was repeating the same cycle at least 4 times in 10 years. Wow. And then to finally see it, then new shame. Oh, wow, Timothy, you're really a bad person. You're really dumb. You're really a mean guy. You're really inadequate. You aren't what you say you are. You've been lying to yourself and everybody else for 10 years. You're pathetic, on and on and on. So releasing shame is facing that. Letting go requires facing that. Looking into my family of origin, where did this begin? And then, like Heidi said, realizing if I hold on to the shame, I'm just going to repeat the relationship again, hurt myself and hurt someone else. So I need to let it go and choose differently. Now, I may make new mistakes, but at least they're new. I'm not falling into that same hole on the same street every single day because I just choose to keep going down the street, choose to keep looking up at the sky. Every day I find myself have to, and and I'm blaming the street builders and the people who didn't fill up, rather than I'm going to walk down a different street, go a different way.
So I'm noticing the time, and I'm wondering if we want to do celebrations and regrets to wrap it up.
What are you celebrating about real life talk?
So, just for a teaching moment, if you're on the call, this is something that is a beautiful practice, and it's not only around letting go. It's a wonderful thing to do anytime with kids, with family, with your loved one, your husband, your wife, your partner. It's a way to get current. And when we name regrets, it diffuses the energy of the regrets. So, we're going to do celebrations and regrets about real life talk, so you guys can see it live and in process, and we're doing it current time because this is our last real life talk. If you didn't hear that earlier, Timothy and I are letting go of this for now, and there's a lot of feelings around all that. So I want to celebrate. The first thing that comes to mind is how well you and I bounce off each other, that it just never feels awkward. I mean, that's amazing. I've taught with many people over the years, and there's just such a natural flow of talking with you, and I really want to celebrate that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I present with a lot of people and I've done workshops with people, and I so value when the flow is easy and your personality and my personality aren't getting triggered and we're able to stay with each other. And that that's not always. So thank you, Heidi, for being who you are. And yeah, I've appreciated the flow between us on and off uh, camera, if we want to call
Yeah. And we'll go back and forth, regrets and celebrations. So I regret that we didn't have hundreds of viewers.
Well, to our credit, I think sometimes we were hitting 400 viewers when you go back and look at people who watch it
Recording.
afterwards.
Yeah.
I haven't checked the demographic in a long time, but on that note, I think, you know, Heidi and I want to offer the learnings we've gotten in life from our mistakes, as well as the books and the teachers and the different modalities that we've studied. And at the same time, we have lives and we have children and we have partners and we have expenses, and we offer our services as coaches to people for pay. And I know in my life I've had to have a boundary around just giving it away and not receiving anything, because at one point I found myself surrounded by friends who were really using me for coaching. And when I sat them down one after another and said, "Hey, I'm not available for coaching anymore," only a few of them stuck in and were my friends. Because as a coach, I really need people who just want to celebrate life, be around me. We could share our stuff together, but I don't want to be giving it walking processes or trying to help them let go, help them out of their belief systems and everything else. And this talk, as much as it's felt unaliving and learning, I've learned a lot from Heidi, from being with her and learning her language and learning her way of looking at some of the things that I look at differently, but we, in a way, we're going the same place. It's just gotten to a point where there's not enough return for my coaching practice, and there's a lot of time. And so that's where it gets to where I'm feeling like someone pulled the cork on the bathtub and the water's draining out. You know, that feeling? You're like, whoa. Whereas if it's full of water and you've got lots of hot water and you keep just adding it, you want to stay in the bath forever. So it's kind of like a regret and a celebration. I'm celebrating the fact that I've learned so much by being with Heidi and doing this. And the regret is that I couldn't figure out how to turn this talk into more people calling and finding out about my services and working with me. I've got lots of referrals from people that I work with, and part of me is like, energy there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a regret and a celebration.
And the celebration. You bring something to mind, that because one of the things I grappled with in letting this call go was I like to give back. I like to pay it forward. I like to contribute free. And there was some like, okay, what's going on around this. And so I just want to share with this that if you think about the people that do charity, that give a lot, that show up a lot, many of them are well supported in some other way. And there's a gentleman that I heard about that did free parenting class for 12 years, which I think is amazing. And I love also to do free things, but he was well supported by the community. So maybe not by the people that took his parenting classes that couldn't afford to pay for services, but maybe those people told somebody else that could afford to pay for the services. So he was well supported in his life, which enabled him to continue to give for free a certain amount of time forever. And so if you're thinking of people giving and doing charity and giving their time and contributing in those ways that don't have a monetary return, remember that everyone needs a monetary return wherever it comes from, and able to do that. Most people can't live all day giving free without being taken care of with housing, with food, with whatever, right? In every way. And I think sometimes we miss that. We miss thinking about that.
You're making me think of a dance that I go to every Sunday, and my friend organizes it. And he schleps 250 pounds of sound equipment up this hill so we can all dance in nature. It all runs off of a giant battery. And it's an amazing sound system, and he's invested a lot of money in it. And all he asks is that we contribute what we can, ideally $15 to $20 every Sunday. And there are Sundays where people don't. And there's 50 to 80 people there, all enjoying his creation and not supporting him. I'm going to raise my hand. I lovingly support him. I'm grateful. I do it monetarily, and once in a while I help out, but probably could help out. So whether the act comes from sharing the talk or referring someone to us or actually calling us and working with us, that's support, and that's appreciation for what we're doing. And again, no guilt or shame. Like I accept that there are people out there who know how to put a talk together and make an offer and sell themselves better. I'm not so great. Neither is Heidi at that. We both really come at something more of a just a generosity. The other thing I wanted to say is that we started this talk in the pandemic, and it was a call from Scott Katamas. Hey, what if we create, as love coaches, we create talks, and he invited a few of us to help him out with this, and we do them morning and night as people are isolated in their room, and we offer basically a place, a Zoomed call or on StreamYard for people to connect. And I just knew, yes, I'm a yes. And Heidi and I did a talk with Daniel called Mondays in the Ohana. Some really great material there. You can check out Mondays in the Ohana on Love Coach Academy. And then we also did Recovery Talk, which has evolved into Real Life Talk, Heidi and I. So Heidi and I initially were doing 2 hours a week, plus the prep time, plus finding guests, all these things. And it was so good. I felt so grateful to be able to offer that. I've noticed as the pandemic is ending, let's pray, and we're opening up, I, like many people, are wanting to get offline and into the world. So there's also a part of me that's wanting out of real life talk and out of online stuff, because I'm really enjoying my work with people physically. I like that. I really do. And I coach people on Zoom, and I work on, I'm grateful for technology. But I'm noticing as the pandemic ends, I feel like, okay, we did what we said. We were a resource for isolated to come together and talk about a bunch of things that I think a lot of us during the pandemic were looking at. I know I was looking at, what do I want to change in my life? What do I want to let go of? How do I want it to be different? I'm having to stay home. Oh, what does that mean to me? What in my life do I no longer want to continue when this is over? And that was really helpful. And these talks were helpful to me. They helped me examine that and look at that.
Yeah. I want to celebrate all of you that contributed your time and your participation by showing up, by commenting in the comment box, by telling friends about it. I want to celebrate all of you that have been here and shared the energy with us, whether you're here once or every single time. I want to appreciate and celebrate that. I want to say that in some ways I do regret letting it go and that it didn't do the things that I needed it to do in order to stay longer. And I want to celebrate that I'm going to have this time to do other things. Do you want to name a couple more and then we'll wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm gonna miss you in this capacity, and I don't know if that's a regret. It's just true, emotionally true. That I will. I look forward to doing these talks with you. I look forward to connecting with you. And again, we've never met personally, but I feel like you're one of my dearest friends. And I don't know Loyal, but I feel him
Yeah.
and I care for him. Um, and so I'm recognizing, there's some like loss coming up, and that's my own stuff, right? Not just about not being with you every week, but just this fear in me, emotion in me that comes up when things end. I'm losing something, losing my
Mhm.
relationship with Heidi. She's not going to be, all these scenarios, and I know that's not true. I just want to name it and feel it, and so I don't know if that's a regret or celebration. It's more just an honest coming to my emotions and some of my personality structure that is still there and
Yeah.
needs to be recognized.
Yeah, I really want to celebrate that. And I've mentioned this before on calls, but I don't feel safe with a whole lot of people on the planet. And I want to celebrate the safety you created in our working together and in our friendship. And in you have been here, even without directly supporting me around some of the most painful things I went through this year. You've been a model of, um, how do you do relationships authentically and helping me with jealousy and insecurity and things that go on between men and women, and really supported me through that in really sweet ways, um, and been so non-judgmental, just holding space for wherever my truth was. And I really want to celebrate that and appreciate that. And that the safety, I think safety is so big, especially with men, because I have had past men perpetrators, and I think that the universe kind of put us together in healing for both of us for the reasons we know, and I celebrate that.
Yeah, thank you for naming that. That's a true celebration. It's been an honor to support you and to be a trustworthy man in your life, and one that's not looking for something or wanting something, but is really there just to give you a space in which to explore and feel safe and get a perspective from a man, but
Mm.
without crossing any kind of energetic or silly boundary. And
Mm.
so, in that, I have gotten a lot of healing because I know I'm a safe man.
Mm. I want to honor that in you and celebrate the all the topics we've gotten to cover, and I celebrate our differences too, our
Yeah,
differences in those topics and holding space for those differences. And I think I celebrate our great communication.
I've been thinking of that one man that came on to Recovery Talk out of the blue, and we dropped into suicide and what to do about it. And it was a powerful, powerful talk for me and for you, who both have dealt with suicide, and for this man. And he got really good guidance as to what he might do in his situation. And I can think of other talks that we've done that I want to celebrate, and some of them on Mondays with the Ohana, um, where we had so many, so many good things. The one with Nina about Black Lives Matter, and the the ways in which we as white folk can support people in their mission to create equality and how we can help level the playing field. That was a really good one. So many.
Yeah. So in lieu of that, you guys, we aren't going away. We're going away live, but all of these recordings are available on Love Coach Academy. They're available on my personal Facebook page, Timothy's personal Facebook page, or our work pages. And so you guys can go back, listen to these, spread them around, send them to friends, and we're not going anywhere as private practitioners. So keep our contact information, use it, refer it, take us up on we'll give our last offer of the discovery call. We have offered on this talk, and I don't know how long we'll do it after, a 30-minute, 20 to 30-minute discovery call with us, in which you can have free time with us to discover whether you want to work with us or not, and what's going on for you, getting really clear and kind of a roadmap of how we would move forward. So I encourage you to reach out to Timothy and I, or both of us. It's sometimes we can also do work together. So that sometimes is needed, where you want the male and female perspective. And I'm more than open to doing that as well. So let's reach out. My website's down there. I'll scroll Timothy's again. Mine's my name, HeidiLove.com. Let's put Timothy's back up there. And again, we appreciate you. And I appreciate you so much, Timothy. And I want to give out a shout out to Love Coach Academy for creating this idea and this inspiration and the platform for it. And a special thanks to Scott Katamas too for doing all of it and all the work that he does in the world. So celebration of that as well.
Yeah, I guess, in closing, these talks have helped me stay focused on my vision of the world being a better world, being one in which people are more conscious, more emotionally intelligent, more empathetic. And Love Coach Academy has been a huge reminder and way of practicing being empathetic, big help in my life. So again, a really big shout out to Scott and all of the Love Coach community. And I'm excited about things that are coming up. I'm leading a workshop in the Bay Area August 28th and filling up. It's going to be really, really cool. And then we'll see what goes on after that.
All right. So we'll be in touch, and thank you again for listening, and we're signing off. And let's do an Om for our last time. If you're open to it, we'll just take a nice deep breath. If you're listening in, please do it with us, and let's just take a nice breath and Om out together.
Yeah, I guess that's the last little bit we need to